Hey, morning, Heretics. James from Heretic Wargaming. Today is our second tournament battle report. Now, I did do the Kill Team battle report not too long ago, and so this will be my second 40k battle report. Now, the first one, I tried something different. It was hit or miss. Some people didn't. They thought it was more like a vlog than a battle documentary, which I wanted to feature more of the side of like what a 40k tournament player goes through in the mornings and getting ready and getting prepared and stuff like that. So y'all kind of saw my routine and saw kind of how I get ready. Now I am still in a hotel room, so my routine today was a slightly different. But so for this one, I'm gonna just kind of talk about what's going through my head and how I'm getting prepared, and then go over the actual the tournament itself. So today I am going to a tournament at a place called Carolina Comics. It is up in Lawton, Oklahoma. So for you guys who are not in the know, if you're in northern Texas, there's a part of it that's called Texhoma, and that's because it's basically part Texas, part Oklahoma, because you're so close to it. So I don't quite understand it either. Not a huge fan of the area, but hey, that's everybody's got their favorites and they're not favorites, especially if you travel a lot. But so today I'm taking I'm calling it a Thousand Suns list because most of the points are Thousand Suns, but it is Thousand Suns with some Knights. So it's Magnus. It is 25 Zangors, 2 units of 5 rubrics. Then we've got Ahriman, a Demon Prince of Tzeentch, a knight with dual Gatling cannons, and then 2 Armiger Helverns, or sorry, they're war dogs now. War dogs with the dual autocannons. So be pretty fun. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen. I'm looking forward to seeing what the meta is. Now, I am attending this tournament with a friend. His name is Tim, and you guys, hopefully, at this point, I've posted up the battle report. It was basically our lists versus one another. So I gave him a practice game, gave me a practice game, and I made a tweak, some spell options. Now I couldn't actually tweak the list itself because I had already submitted it to the tournament organizer. But spells, you get to pick those pre-game, so they're not set in stone. I put them on my list to help me out. So, but yeah, there's that. So it should be a lot of fun. Tim is taking his Nurgle Demon / Death Guard, so I helped him a little bit with his list, gave him some tips and stuff like that, so hopefully he performs pretty well. But yeah, there's not much else to say about the tournament right now. I'm not really going to go over anything crazy. I'll film when I get to the store. So I'll see you guys after my hour drive. All right, we made it to sunny Lawton, Oklahoma. So as you guys can see, yay! Check it out in the back. So let me get the store behind me. So we're here today at Carolina Comics. What was that?
The guy in the gray there in the middle?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So we're here to play in a tournament. So Tim's on the other side of the car. Hi, Tim. Wave to the camera, Tim. And so we're gonna go in, and we're both playing Chaos today. So I will brief you guys on updates from both me and Tim, because Chaos is awesome, and hopefully Chaos wins. So see you guys inside the store. All right, so my first game, I was matched up against him. So we're playing a modified version of one of the chapter approved missions, zeroing in. It's the one where there's the middle objective that slowly shrinks and gets smaller. They did remove, however, the invuln removal part of the mission, which is pretty cool. I think both of us are going to enjoy that because he's playing demons and I'm playing that. So actually, it's probably a good thing that they removed that. But so I'm already deployed. We got I think it's Spearhead or whatever, the big V deployment. And Tim is now deploying. So I'll just kind of brief you guys in between rounds. Not going to do like a full battle report sort of thing. All right. So the end of me and Tim's round one. So I killed a blob of Plague Bears. I whittled this one down. I think they're below 20 now after their leadership, which he was good. Or no, he auto-passed them. He still got all the Poxwalkers. Magnus was not able to secure. I tried to kill the Scrivener and the Poxbringer, but I didn't get both.
and the Nurglings are still there. So, right now the score is 1-1 because we are playing the modified primary mission. So Tim got a primary point because I cannot contest the number of models he has, but I was able to secure a first blood. So we'll go on to Tim's turn 2. Oh, he did seize, by the way, just so you guys know. All right, Tim, you can go ahead and start moving. So the end of the second round, so I was able to kill off most of the Plague Bears. I am out of CP now. I did kill his Warlord, and so we tied on the number, so now it's 15-inch bubble in the middle, so we have both had 15 models. Now, Tim's in a tight spot right now. Now he can keep controlling the middle because I definitely can't match him in the number of bodies, especially if he starts picking on my Rubric Marines here in the back, which he might. But I do still have Magnus at 15 wounds. I do still have an 8-wound Knight here. It really depends on kind of the rolls and kind of because now it's a 12-inch bubble in the middle, right? So I need to be able to just like start killing lots and lots of stuff in order to hold him off. The score right now, though, is Tim has 1 and I have 2 because I've only gotten Slay the Warlord and Linebreaker. And we're going to score the modified kill points at the end of the game, which is our other secondary. So for every 100 points worth of enemy units destroyed at the end of the game. So we'll count that up at the end. Right now, I'm pretty sure I'm way ahead on that, but we still have at least 3 rounds to go. So get it going. All right, so the end of the game, Tim has decided to go ahead and call it. Essentially, I was able to kill his Demon Prince on the last turn and killed the last of the Plague Bears, and we measured it out, and I will have the primary this turn. I also got Cull the Hordes for one of my secondaries, so these are my secondaries right here. So essentially, there's no way that Tim's going to probably kill the Knight this turn, but I'm going to probably kill more than enough zombies between the Armigers, Mortarion, Magnus, and the Demon Prince that are still around. I think the biggest thing with this mission was Tim did really well. He flooded the middle like he should have, and he had lots and lots of bodies, but I had enough damage to essentially deal with it. And he didn't realize I had rolled the 6-inch Heroic Intervention on this guy, and so when he advances the Foul Blight spawns to get close, I was able to actually heroically intervene when he failed to kill it. So, which I did get lucky. I made 1 save, which is why he was left with 2 wounds. So, but no, that was a good game. Good game, Tim. Sorry we got paired up first round. And then, see you guys back for round 2. All right, so here's lunchtime, and everybody's already out eating, so I'm going to go over the armies real quick. So here, it looks like is that Mono Dark Angels? There's a Mono Dark Angels list. Ooh, that's pretty cool. Can't say it faced Dark Angels this edition. Then you got Harlequins. These are awesomely painted. I love that's really nice. Here we got some Tau. Looks like the double Riptides. Some Battlesuit Commanders. Yeah. Some SMS Hammerheads. Here's a very, very pretty triple Riptide list. So probably something similar to what most of you guys see out in the tournaments. Triple Chaos Knights. So it looks like he has some Imperials that he's slowly converting with a ton of Plague Bears. And looks like some Nurglings. He's got a Scrivener and Sloppity. So.
I was going to come in for open play, but that's all.
Looks like some sort of Marines. Primaris Marines? Space Marines? Yeah, so probably a newer player. That's Tim's stuff. That's my stuff. And then these guys are packing up, but it looks like Black Templars. Got some Black Templars, which is cool, and some Necrons.
Necroni baloney.
Necroni baloney.
Here's the mission too.
So, neat to see some Black Templars out. So, all right.
These guys pray Amen Ramen.
Amen Ramen. I like that. So those are all the armies, and we'll be back with round 2 after lunch.
So I'll do the back squad.
All right, so playing Harlequins, mono Harlequins, so never really faced them other than in Soupless, so this will be interesting. Have a feeling this might not go well, but that's cool. That's how you learn, right? I'd rather lose here than at a GT or something like that. So,
It is a good learning experience.
but either way, so he's deployed back here. I chose to go ahead and give him first just because the way that we're playing with the missions and stuff, get the ability to kill something on first turn is pretty important for this game. Now he's probably gonna. We'll see what happens, but he's just redeployed 1 unit of his bikes, so he's got 2 units of bikes, 4 of the transports full of jumpy Harlequin goodness, and some HQs. So, but yeah, he's about to move up and probably kill an Armiger or a Knight or something. We'll see what ends up happening at the end of my turn or his turn 1. All right, so end of turn 1 for both of us. So Mike has lost most of his Harlequin bikes, but in return they were able to kill an Armiger, and they put my Knight down to 9 wounds left. So now he's actually attempting to tier it or possibly kill it if he rolls well. So now he's over here. He's out of CP. He has used all of his CP to secure that Armiger kill, and I rolled a 5-up twice for the 2 damage hits, and then. Basically, I was trying to keep the Armiger alive to deny him a point. So right now, the score is 1-1. Yeah, because we don't get any primary points at the end of the game. So you guys can see Mike is now moving up all of his beautifully painted. These are the ones that I went around and looked at, Harlequins, and they're hiding behind this big-ass piece of terrain in the middle. So could be very bad the coming turn. We'll see what ends up happening at the end of this turn. All right, so the end of turn 2, the score is still 1-2. 1-2. Yeah, 1-2. He's got 2, I got 1. We're all in turn 2. Magnus has made it over to the other side. I killed 1 transport, and that one's super wounded. Over here, we did kill a transport, but I was not able to surround it enough, and he was able to get his Harlequins out. So there's 4 Harlequins and a bike still left over here, and my Knight is sitting at 7 wounds. So we'll see what ends up happening over there. And I did lose Ariman and a few Zangors.
Did that pick him around?
Yeah, I do got to roll morale. Let's see. Hey, good.
All right.
Yeah, because I lost 3. Yep. So, and we'll come back at the end of turn 3. Not very exciting yet. So the Knight's barely hanging on. All right, so Mike is over here thinking. He's thinking very hard right now. So we're at the top of 4. And he is thinking very hard about where he wants to go. All he's got left is 2 Harlequin troop squads, and it looks like 5 HQ, or 1 elite and 3 HQs. So yeah, a bunch of characters and 2 Harlequin squads. So I still have an Armiger. I have looks like 6 Zangors left. I have the Demon Prince. I had to feed him Magnus last turn, so and then I have the Knight. So this is all we really have left, and we're going to see what ends up happening at the after this round.
Alrighty.
All right, so the end of that turn, end of turn 4, Mike is essentially just hiding behind this big piece of terrain because I can't see him while he's back here. Essentially, it's just my Armiger shooting at Harlequins. I think that's pretty much what the game is right now. And so right now he's just deciding where he wants to put the Harlequins. I did move the Knight back even further in case he has some sort of shenaniganry that I wasn't expecting. And I did try to charge the Zangors in because I wanted to kill one of those 2 squads of Harlequins, but failed to charge. So, he's going to scooch up and probably kill by Zangors. We'll go over to Mike's turn 5.
Okay.
All right, so my game against Mike, fantastic. Mike, give you a handshake. Never faced a pure Harlequins list. This was a learning experience. So just so you guys know, so for example, they can advance in transports and still shoot their fusion blasters at what?
If you're soaring spite.
If you sword and spite with Ballistic Skill 3, right? Still.
BS3.
So BS3, which was I did not know that they could do that. On top of it, the characters get so many attacks. Like this dude gets a bunch. It was so many attacks. It was ridiculous. He was able to
16 attacks with those 3.
with just those 3, 16 attacks. So I was just like, it was a lot. But so we rolled. The game ended on turn 5. Luckily, we rolled it out. He would have ended up winning if we on turn 6. If we would have went to turn 6, he would have won. Because essentially, what would have happened was my Demon Prince would have died. Those Rubrics would have died, but the Harlequins would have died to the Knight. which wouldn't matter because then he would hold 2 primaries to my 1 primary objective. Yeah, because I can't advance far enough to get to that. This armager definitely can't kill 3 characters by himself. And then he would have held 2 more table quarters. I would have held 2 more. It would have been, it was close. It was a good game. But overall, what were your thoughts?
I made one big mistake,
Yeah.
and you capitalized on it superbly. Other than that, it was pretty much cat and mouse. I was relying heavily on this. This is the MVP for the clowns.
Yeah.
Getting rid of Arm in turn 2 was pretty clutch for me.
Yeah, it was big.
Then again, you getting that 5-inch advance was great for you.
Yeah.
Game might have been different, even if I would have remembered that one mistake. You did forget to spike for the first 3 battle rounds.
Yeah, with the
your 2
rubrics. Yeah, with the rubrics.
And
squads.
although you didn't deep strike them, it still worked to your advantage. However, if you could still pin me down here
Yeah.
for at least a turn, because I can't advance while I fall back,
Yep.
it would have helped a lot. Clowns excel at killing vehicles, and usually when I fight against Knightless, I've got no problems because I always kill the Quistors first, and then
Yeah.
I just bad touch the War Dogs. Unfortunately, it's been 6 weeks since I played against a Knight,
Yeah.
and I underestimated its durability. So it's alive with 1 wound. Well, 1 wound is all you need.
1 wound, I know. And what was weird was I rolled the one where I take an extra wound.
Yes.
And I failed it.
Red blade. 2 turns.
2 turns in a row, but I passed the the first turn I was good. Second turn I failed it, but it didn't matter. Third turn,
No, that one mattered.
that one did
You rolled
matter.
3, 'cause if you
That's
rolled
right.
4, you would have died.
That's right.
And possibly exploded with the dice.
No, it wasn't a bullet up. So.
And the next turn, although he failed
Yep.
it again, he murdered a lot of transports.
Yep. So he killed a lot of transports. I actually split fire over here and killed 2 transports, which never happens ever, especially when he's at his lowest tier. So
My dice finally went cold. They were pretty hot the first couple turns.
Yeah.
And I rolled 6 dice and couldn't get a single 4, so it was bound to happen averages. It's okay.
yeah, no,
It's the game.
it was a great game, Mike. And well, sadly I'm only here TDY, so we won't get to play again. But maybe if I'm on the West Coast
There's a
sometime.
tournament in 2 weeks in Eddie.
Oh, I won't be here. I head back to North Carolina next
Gotcha.
week. So no, it was a great game, man, and learning for both of us because these guys are gross. Beautiful army, by the way.
Thank you.
All right, so sorry I missed your name again. Eddie. Eddie, nice to meet you, Eddie. James. So hi, Eddie. Say hi. So we're playing a game of Chaos Knights versus Chaos Knight 1000 Suns.
But these are the good guys.
They're the good guys because they're Nurgle, which Nurgle is best. We already have talked about this. So, but anyways, yes. It's the grudge match of the century, 1000 Suns versus Nurgle. So, yeah, we'll see if the Nurgle Knights can defeat the 1000 Suns Knights. Great fun stuff. So we deployed 9 inches away from the center. I went ahead and gave him first because I did get to pick my deployment zone. And, yeah. So I'll come on back later on. Oh, man.
And these dice are the worst. They always show ones, too. Always.
Roll the worst dice. Oh, you got 6? Look at that. They roll 5s and 6s. So lots of excitement right now. So the end of round 1.
Hey, it puts me over 20.
It does. Oh yeah. Put you back. Yeah. Yeah. 21. The Zangors obviously made the charge, disintegrated everything on that end. Magnus killed a knight. So bye Knight.
Filled them around.
I killed 15 plague bears there, and that's what all the excitement was about. Basically, he between the Sloppity and him, right? So you roll 2d6, pick the highest. You roll 2d6, pick the lowest. You kind of cancel each other out. So he rolls 1d6, takes it, rolled a 6, re-rolled it, rolled a 1, and got 6 plague bears
Rolled
back.
the one, got 6 play
Yeah,
bears back.
Yep, got 6 plague bears back. So that's what all the hooping and hollering was. Other than that, yeah, this is how the field looks. My knight is at 10 wounds. This knight is at 16, and that one's at 21. So, yeah, we'll move on to his turn too. Video while you clean up. So, so we've already called the game. I will just say Magnus is a knight mowing machine. I did place my models because I knew that he was going to be out of range for most of the Gatling cannons in the beginning. So, Magnus was on the far end there. And as predicted, he came around. He unloaded on the knight. and did a bunch of wounds, right? And then the second turn, Magnus killed a knight, but by then I had glamour, I had all of the buffs on him, and he just proceeded to walk up through 3 knights. That knight's actually dead. Over here, my knight did explode into a massive fireball, killed a bunch of stuff, killed so many things, and this was... I've just charged all this in there, but I had killed the knight, so he went ahead and called it because now all he's got is some plague bearers. So, what'd you think of the game?
A lot of fun. I took a big risk. It was pretty fun to get that.
Yeah.
I like taking gambles in this game.
Yeah.
It's a fun match.
Yeah, no, it was good, and hopefully you take Iconoclast next time. We talked about that.
For real. It's my first time, and it's get a lot of games in. The tournament's a great place because you get 3 matches back to back to back.
Yeah.
Tried all the different relics, all the different warlord tricks.
Yeah.
I'm happy with the Knight Codex, the Chaos Knight Codex.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
So
Great playing with you.
Great game, man.
Thanks for coming down to Lawton.
Yeah, thanks, and get on home. I know your babysitter's leaving, so so we haven't scored this up the round, but I basically got max points. Magnus kills Knights. That's what I've learned this tournament.
Get a picture of that?
I already got a picture of it. So, and I'll see you guys in the post battle rep. Like the end of any event, I'm extremely tired at the end. However, I will highly recommend. So we were at Lawton, Oklahoma. That is in southern Oklahoma, right on the Texas border. And I know it's kind of far from a lot of things. It's a rather small town. But if you guys can definitely make it out, go to Carolina Comics. It was actually a very nice store. Massive 40K selection. Like it was pretty big. Probably one of the bigger ones that I've ever seen. And on top of it, the store owner Greg was incredibly polite, incredibly nice. And the cool thing was, yes, it was a smaller event. It was free. Everybody got a paint pot just for participating, which was awesome, right? But on top of that, there was still prize support. So, in the end of the day, because I did take first, I was able to walk away with this for nothing. So, Greg, I want to thank you very much. I've never been to a store that runs tournaments and basically gives away stuff. Kudos on you, man. I'm glad your business is doing that well. And I'm like so surprised and shocked because it is not common. So Greg was incredibly nice, very nice. He even gave me a set of Kill Team tokens that I was looking for. So thank you very much, Greg. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for putting on a great event. So as far as the games go, and another shout out to Carolina Comics. So head up there if you guys get a chance. And they do these tournaments monthly, so once a month. And they have a lot of tables, and the terrain was actually very nice. Anyways, so on to the actual games. So game 1, I feel bad. So I got paired up against my buddy Tim, who I just had a battle report with literally the exact same 2 lists. He made some minor tweaks based on some recommendations for me. And so the game was going really well for him. The biggest issue, and we talked about this in the car, the list, he felt like it lacked sufficient punching power, which I can definitely agree with. So Plague Burst Crawlers can do some damage, but they're not a major damage dealing unit, right? Often, that's why you guys will see lots of Demon Princes, you'll see Thousand Suns, you'll see Knights, you'll see all sorts of different stuff with the Plague Bearers or the Poxwalkers or whatever, right? Because those units themselves naturally don't do they can do damage, but they don't do a lot of damage. Now, yeah, we'll talk about that here in a minute. He did take the Plague Banner on both units of Plague Bearers, but I was basically able to circumvent that because I knew that I could kill a lot of Plague Bearers really quick. Now, in that game, my Zangors didn't do very well. They pretty much bounced off those Plague Bearers that they fought. And Tim did put up a very good fight. I'm going off the top of my head, but it took a lot of positioning on my part. I was using Warp Time a lot to basically bounce Magnus around the board, and I was smiting and ping-ponging Magnus everywhere, and basically trying to eliminate as many of... Once I got rid of the Plague Bearers, I knew the game was going to be a lot easier. And so, even though Tim did concede, I think it was turn 4, and the writing was on the wall at that point. I mean, he had 2 Plague Burst Crawlers and some Poxwalkers left, and Typhus. That was it. And I still had a lot of my army left. So, and he knew I was literally just going to keep picking on the Poxwalkers and eliminate any chance of him contesting that objective in the middle. So he did call it at that point. I said, "Are you sure, Tim?" He said, "Yeah," and I understood. So Tim did very well with the list. I can definitely see what he was saying with the lack of punching power. Foul Blight Spawns are incredibly swingy. There was only one time in that game where he rolled above strength 10. Now for above strength 8. Sorry. Before that, like all of them were strength 7 or less. Now for my list, so that was my second time using Magnus, and I started actually getting the hang of him. Now I didn't realize that his +2 also applied to denies. I looked that up and I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. He denies 3 at +2. And after that point, essentially, Tim was not able to get a psychic power off because between him and Ahriman, I had enough pluses to my denies that it was really hard for him to get spells off, which I never realized. That's Magnus is he's a psychic beast, because I was like, man, this is kind of cool. But anyways, so that was pretty cool. I started getting the hang of Magnus. The knight was doing real well. So for that matchup, I rolled the +1. Was it +1? No, the 6-inch intervention. Sorry, I'm trying to remember all my games, and I can't remember what his second thing was. Oh, the 2 inches. Yeah, 2 inches move. Which was actually really nifty. Having a knight being able to move 14 inches turn 1 allowed me to get the knight really close to those plague bearers and start eliminating real quick. Now, Vow of Carnage was awesome. I got my Vow of Carnage up over 30 by the end of the game, and that knight just starts stomping things into the ground left and right. Like, you can tier it and it doesn't matter. It has so many attacks, it's just going to keep stomping on stuff. Vow of Carnage on a Dual Avenger Gatling Knight is totally awesome. I love it. Totally awesome. I definitely loved it that game, and it definitely came in handy. And Tim would have killed the knight in that very final round. So it was left at 2 wounds. Knights, you gotta And I talked to Tim after the game because he was splitting fire when the knight was so low, and I told him, man, you should have just all in on the knight. I got to get rid of the knight, you know. And often and I'm noticing knights, you know, people. It just takes a little bit of luck to swing it the opposite way, where like the knight player makes a few saves that you wouldn't expect, or that you didn't do quite as many wounds as you would have liked, and the knight lives. And even a fully tiered Avenger Gatling Cannon Knight, if they've got like 2 CP to spend on Trail of Destruction, is still going to do a lot of damage on average. I think there was one game this tournament where he just rolled still like. It was almost like I didn't even need to have a 3-up ballistic skill, so it was pretty nuts how many hits I rolled. Dice. But and I was actually pleasantly surprised with the rubrics, regardless of how slow they are. Their Infernal Bolters were able to put down a lot of pain. They definitely thinned out some Nurglings for me. I was using them a lot. Now I was forgetting about their smites, so that is something in the future that, because you know, now I did buy a box of some rubrics that I'm gonna have to work on. So sorry, adjusting the camera. So that was game 1. Thank you, Tim. Thank you for being on the channel again, and having a good game. Now game 2 against my Harley Quinn opponent, Mike. Now Mike, his list, I am. Faced Harlequins. This is now the 3rd time that I faced Harlequins this edition, and I knew what fusion pistols were. I knew about the Harlequin getting up and shooting again bikes, because I faced that before. I knew what haywire bikes could do. However, he was taking a completely different approach. He had the I don't remember, it's like Soaring Sky or something like that, and that allowed him to advance. So he was able to advance his transports 22 inches. Then he was able to basically warp time them another 22 inches. And then because of whatever his chapter trait, he was able to shoot the fusion pistols from the back of the transports at full ballistic skill, because it turned them into Assault 1 weapons, and he ignores the penalties for assault and advancing. Really cool. It was a really cool thing. And he got really close to getting me. Now, we talked about it after the game. The biggest thing was that the knight was left at 1 wound. He said, you know, had he gone back and redid it all over again, he would have sent all the haywire bikes into it, as opposed to the way that they moved. He was only able to get line of sight on like 7 bikes, I think it was total, and the 7 bikes total were what put me at my 7 wounds. Which was still a lot. Like, he still did a lot, but he would have killed it if he would have put everything into it. And he said that's what he would have done, and then he would have actually charged into the armiger, because the armiger wouldn't like really be able to do much in close combat. And he would have just maybe done a few wounds. But his biggest thing is, the knight would have been eliminated, and then he could have maybe done some shenanigans with Fade and Fire or something like that. However, that's not how it went. It actually ended up that Armiger did live through 2 so he swung with the Harley Quinn bikes, only did 1 wound. I made my 5-up invuln, which left me still at 2 wounds. The following combat phase, he swung at it again, and I lived again because he only did 1 wound. So then he had to use his last 3 CP to fight again, because he had to secure a kill to get the secondary point for killing something on the first turn. Now, we were playing like modified ETC type missions, so it was a lot different from ITC, the way that things panned out. Like, the scores were really tight for most of the game. That was a big swing, but ultimately it was the knight living. The knight lived through the entire game. He had 1 wound left. He had nothing that he could do after he shot that fusion pistol and did 6 wounds to it. The fusion pistol's like, regardless of what you think about Meltas, then yeah, you get a save and whatever. That many fusion pistols does a lot of work. And then, he killed Magnus with just fusion pistols. Now, I will say, I charged Magnus into a squad of 3 Harlequins, and yeah, the troops, not that. And you would expect that I would have killed them, and I didn't. He made it a lot of saves, a lot of 4-ups, so... kind of swung both ways. Ultimately, though, that game was decided. I think we both played a very tactical game. There was a lot of measuring, pre-measuring, figuring out, where we're going to be. Harlequins were rough. That big piece of terrain in the middle definitely made my life hell, because it allowed him to hide his army for most of the game from my knights. And so essentially he had to poke his head. There was a couple opportunities. So, for example, I was able to move the knight over to the right just enough off of his little hill to see just a little piece of the transport when it was actually on its base. Me and Mike talked about it thoroughly. Like, I was like, hey, this was my intent. I was pretty sure I could see that. And he's like, yeah, no. And Mike was very courteous. And I want to thank him, because he could have just been a straight dick and been like, no, I don't believe you, from where I'm looking, because we both were looking again. So he was real nice. I killed a transport. Like, that's literally all that happened with that shot. I sent 24 Gatling cannon shots into a single Harlequin transport. So, and ultimately, it affected the game, but not as much as the next turn when I split my Gatling cannon shots and killed 2 transports, which... that has never happened before. Like I said in the video, that never ever happens. I'll always split my shots against my best judgment, and it never works out. And that is the very first time ever. So sorry, Mike. Worked out, and it worked out to my advantage because he had a trick up his sleeve to basically enable his Harlequins to get back across the field after they killed Magnus. So, and in the end of the game, it was left. He had no Harlequins. He had 5 characters left. Oh, and 2 troops up on a hill. So it was a real close game. Really close. I had a 1 wound knight, an armiger, and a prince, demon prince. And a bunch of rubric marines, which saved the day with a huge advance. I was able to get into that middle objective, which there was a lot of rolls that game that basically could have swung the game one way or another, because I needed at least a 5-inch advance with those rubrics. I got a 5, and I was able to get within 3 of that objective, which gave it to me. But had it gone one more turn, which we did talk it over, we did some dice rolling and stuff. Had it gone one more turn, he would have actually ended up winning the game by a small margin, but he would have been able to kill my demon prince in close combat between all of his mortal wound stuff, that he's got. He would have killed that. He would have killed the rubrics in the middle, which I would have reciprocated by killing the Harlequins, which was fine by him because he would have taken an objective from me. And and he would have won the game. So it was a real close game, really, really well played. And thank you, Mike. I learned a lot about Harlequins, and his army was absolutely gorgeous. My biggest mistake that game was forgetting 2 turns in a row to deep strike the Zangors. Had I deep struck those Zangors, they might have contributed a lot more to the battle. As it was, or as it ended up being, they did help by surrounding a transport, but he was able to pile out within 3. I did surround the transport, but I didn't surround it well enough. You know what I mean? So I should have, I hugged the transport. I should have actually spaced myself out. Because it would have killed more of those Harlequins, right, when they hopped out. Because one did break its ankle when it hopped out. He rolled a 1. So that was my biggest mistake that game. Other than that, I think I did really well. So I guess the top player for the event gets to pick, before they know who their opponent is, they get to pick their table. And because I had the top score, I went ahead and picked that table because I was like, okay, I can hide, Magnus and my knights behind these walls and nothing could shoot him. And then lo and behold, I was facing Harlequins, and he was able to do the exact same thing on the other side. So, and then I didn't even hide behind the walls. I didn't even need them. So I could have definitely went both ways. So lesson learned. I was trying to game the system in my advantage, and it ended up providing my opponent with a bigger advantage. So really neat. It was a neat tactical game, and I greatly enjoyed it. And then game 3 against Eddie. So Eddie was a blast to play. He was hilarious. He was laughing. He was all smiles. I had a lot of fun playing him. His triple knights. These were his first 3 games with knights, and he was trying out Infernal Knights. So he was trying different variations. He was doing all sorts of different combos. He tried out the Psychic Knight and all sorts of stuff. In my game, he had the Psychic Knight with the Pyro Throne. And the other thing. Basically, he could deny 2 psychic powers, and cast a smite. Yay, cast smite. And we forgot about that. He would have actually, that didn't really come into play. Ignoring mortal wounds on a 5-up. I don't think because that was on his Dual Avenger Gatling Knight. Yeah, I don't know if that ever actually would have came up, which I forgot about. So sorry, Eddie. Sorry, Eddie. I think I might have smited it once with Magnus, but I don't think it ultimately would have made much of a difference the way that the game played out. So he was trying that out. He didn't do the warp-sided helm because he didn't need it against my list. But he had all sorts of different variations of relics and stuff. No, he did have the warp-sided helm on the. No, he did. Can't remember what his other 2 relics were in Warlord traits. One was for the Rampager. He had the relic. Oh no, he had Quicksilver Throne. Then he had the one where if he's in your deployment zone, he gets the because he basically was stacking pluses to his charge range. That way he could supercharge you with the Rampager. It was really cool. I think that's a good idea. That's something I didn't think of because he gets +3 to the charge, I believe. As an Infernal, because he does the +2 inches thing and all that stuff. So he gets +3 to the charge, 2 inches. If it was a Dreadblade, he would have maybe gotten even another 2 inches. So we did talk after the game because he didn't have any Dreadblades. I was like, hey, yeah, you can do this. You can declare everything as a Dreadblade and just know you can't take these relics. And then you get to pick which one you want to make your Dreadblade for the game and get the packs and damnations. So I gave him those hints. Now, I will say Infernal Households definitely showed why I think why a lot of people are arguing that they're suboptimal. So on turn 1 alone, he did 8 mortal wounds between his knights. That is a third of a knight gone. So he was making my job a lot easier. I'm sorry, Mike. Or sorry, Eddie. He was making my job a lot easier. Now, the Strength 7, damage 3 auto Gatling cannons. Really cool idea. He did it on both of his knights. He gave one a Strength 7 Gatling cannon. Now, I will say that I got the deployment zone, so I picked the deployment zone, and he got to deploy first. So I counter-deployed, did a lot of measuring to basically make sure that Magnus, if he wanted to get to Magnus, he would have to move like full-on towards me. And, if he was coming at Magnus, then he would be ignoring the knight. and he would have gotten the. So I was thinking it in my head, so he would have the 24 shots with the Gatling cannons. One of them would be re-rolling the hits, most likely hitting, 10 shots, then wounding on 4s, right? So he'd wound me 5 times. I would probably save 2 to 3 of those. So if, 3 gets through on Magnus, that's 9 damage. Okay, cool. Magnus took half of his wounds. Then the second one was going to go ahead and shoot, but he wouldn't be re-rolling, which meant he would have been hitting with 8 shots. Yeah, 8 shots, right? I might be doing that right. Yeah, 8 shots. He would have been hitting with 8 shots, wounding with 4. I would have saved at least 2, which means another 6. So Magnus still would have been alive, and then he would have shot the battle cannon, but then the knight would be at full tier. And that was assuming he moved the full amount, because I placed Magnus on the furthest possible point that the Rampager would hopefully get in the way of the other knight, and he wouldn't be able to get close enough, which he wasn't able to. And because of that, he actually shot everything at my normal knight, which allowed me to rotate ion shields and live with 10 wounds. I will say that the damage 3 autocannon is actually really good. Those did more damage than his battle cannon. So yeah, I think his battle cannon only took 1 or 2 wounds off the dude. So he was trying a bunch of different stuff. So I was kind of learning from him, seeing what worked. I really liked what he did with the Quicksilver Throne. That might be something if I get a Rampager eventually. I will probably won't do Infernal. Definitely won't do Infernal. So definitely Iconoclast. But I think he was onto something there. But ultimately that game was decided. So he shot everything into my knight. Wasn't able to secure anything off that. He shot a bunch of stuff in his Angors. I think he killed like 2. No, 3. 3 on turn 1, and that was it. Because I placed myself in such a way that his Rampager was not going to, even with full tilt, was not going to get into anything. The closest thing to him was rubrics, and they were like 10, maybe 11 inches away. And he would have had to spend CP to swing up levels, and on top of it, I don't know if he would have been able to squeeze between the barrels and the thing that was there. So basically, I was using the terrain to my advantage, and I hid my armigers. So if you guys watch the video, the armigers in a corner that they could not get out of the corner, but they had like a little slot where they could kind of slide to the side and see his army. The reason why I did that was they were 2 of his mark for death targets, and I did not want him shooting them first turn, because I knew if he had a way to shoot them, he was going to kill them, and that was 2 points for him. So, and they would not have lived through one of those Strength 7 Avenger cannons. Trust me on that one. But so I learned that game that Magnus is a Knight Slaying Fiend. So all my psychic powers that very first turn went off except for Death Hex, which was the important one. But my dual Avenger Gatling Cannon Knight with the Warp-Sighted Helm and rerolling all hits was able to kill 15 Plague Bearers, which was really, really damn good between that and some smites and other spells. And Magnus got in, so at that point I had done enough wounds to the Rampager Knight that it was at 15 wounds. And then Magnus charged in and KO'd it because basically he ignores their anything on them and does straight 3 damage, right? So basically I was saving my rerolls to make sure that I had exactly enough damage to kill it. I rolled, had enough to kill it, and killed the Rampager, and then I consolidated towards, but not into, the Avenger Gatling Cannon Knight. And essentially I was putting him in a hard spot, right? And I had, at this point, teleported the Zangors to the opposite side of the board. They were able to make their charge into some Plague Bearers and the Nurglings. I spent the 1 CP for Veterans of the Long War and 2 CP to swing again, and I was able to secure both of those units, which they were 2 of my Mark for Death units. So in this mission, you actually had to pick for your secondary 3 units that you had to kill by the end of the game, and if you killed those units, that was your secondary, right? And you could tie or win it if you killed more. But I had picked those 2, and then his Warlord Knight, which at this point I hadn't touched, right? However, so his Avenger Gatling Cannon Knight was now at 15 wounds. His Warlord Knight was at 21 wounds. He had lost Plague Bearers. He had lost Nurglings. His other Plague Bearer unit was heavily wounded, but all the cheering and stuff, you got 6 guys back, which was hilarious. So he was at 21 Plague Bearers. But at this point, I still hadn't lost anything. I still had my whole army. And his next turn, he was able to secure the kill on the now, I will say the Plague Bearers, they did get a couple 5 damage swings through on my knight, which was hilarious. And he super killed the knight, right? And then the knight exploded. 10 inches, d6 wounds on everything within 10 inches, right? Didn't kill Ahriman. I had 1 CP left at this point. I was like, I'm going to reroll this if Ahriman dies. Ahriman did not die. I killed 5 Plague Bearers. I killed one of his HQs behind the Plague Bearers. I think it was the Scrivener. I killed the Scrivener. Yeah. No. Poxbringer. Killed the Poxbringer. Did 2 wounds to both of his other HQs, right? And then I killed 2 of my own rubrics. Totally worth the exchange, I think. Totally worth the exchange. But so the way he had placed everything else went into Magnus, like absolutely everything else. But at this point, I had Glamour up and I did have my 3-up invuln save, and I made every single save. Every save. I think I failed 1 the whole time, which was 1 Gatling cannon and got through. So at this point, Magnus is essentially unharmed. His Avenger Gatling Cannon was not able to move very far back away from Magnus, and so it essentially forced his hand. I was like, yeah, man, you might as well go ahead and charge into Magnus because I'm going to heroically intervene into you. I'm going to tell you that right now. He's like, yeah, I know you're going to do this, and he charged into me. Did like a few more wounds to Magnus. I think Magnus was at 12 at this point, and then Magnus secured himself a second knight. Same thing. I was saving my. I had the 1 CP left at this point to reroll a damage roll to see if I didn't get the 15, and I got 5 swings through, and was able to kill the knight. Right. So that's 2 knights down. At this point, all he's got left is some Plague Bearers and a knight. He was being a good sport about it. He's like, yo, I'm learning. He's like, I already see the writing on the wall and the way this is going to go. And I was like, you know what? Magnus is going to come at the last night. He's like, yep, go ahead, man. And that's all she wrote. Magnus is a knight mowing feed. Now, he is incredibly swingy. It definitely relied on me making a lot of 3-up saves, and it definitely relied on me actually deploying in a way that didn't feel comfortable to me. But Magnus does get 32 inches to move. So for you guys out there who are looking to play Magnus, you guys can deploy him very conservatively, and he is going to get across the board. As long as you're not facing like Tyranids or something with crazy psychic stuff to stop your warp time. I would say like this is where World Eaters is real good with their stratagem, where you can deny a psychic power on a 4-up. That is probably like Magnus would hate to see that. Hey, I'm going to deny your warp time on a 4-up. I don't care what you roll. So, but overall, I greatly enjoyed my list. I thought it was a lot of fun. Dual Avenger Gatling Cannon Knight. I'm sorry. I'm going to try out the battle cannons here in a little while. I've got one I believe I can build on my. Yeah, I think I have one at home, but I'll figure that out. I'm going to have to convert up an arm. But I'll test out the dual battle cannons that, so Kenny Boucher, talked to him a little bit. I'm starting to talk to him more. And he definitely, he made a good case for him with the Caladiuses running around. I could see that. I did try Vow of the Beast Slayer on my 3rd game against the Knights, and I ended up not even shooting the Knights. I was just shooting Plague Bearers the whole game. So I think that was kind of a waste of 1 CP. Vow of the Beast Slayer, I could see that being used on like a rapid fire battling cannon knight or something like that, but definitely not on a dual Avenger. Yeah, that was probably a bad call on my part. It was a waste of CP. Helm of Warpsight was very useful in every single game because every single game had minus hit stuff. So definitely used the hell out of that relic. And then I used the Aura of Terror twice, which is really good, especially against demons. Like really good. My first game against him, it forced him to use 2 CP to keep his demons around because I was whittling away on multiple units. So I was like, all right, who do you want to run away? And with the Aura of Terror near multiple units, it was real bad for him. It definitely made him stop and think. Now, against the 3rd round opponent, we did run into the hole because he had Sloppity Biopiper and I had Aura of Terror. So we were like, okay, so how does this work? Do you roll the 2d6, pick the lowest, or pick the highest? So we just kind of came to a gentlemanly agreement that you just roll 1d6 and then that's what you take, right? Now, it only came into play the one time because after that, the knight died. Died turn 2. Yeah, and it still worked out in his favor. It was hilarious. I probably would have spent the 2 CP. I'm not as ballsy as him, so definitely kudos on you, Eddie. And he got his 6 Plague Bears back. High risk, high reward, hilarious. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. I really like the list. I personally do not own Magnus. I do not own Zangor. Well, actually, now I own Zangors. So I'm going to say thank you, Jon. Jon, who let me borrow the army. I went ahead and picked this because I like the army so much that, well, this gives me now some Rubric Marines to use. It gives me some Zangors to use. I still obviously need to buy a couple more boxes. And now I have an Arimon, the 40k Arimon, because I use the 30k Arimon on foot all the time. Arimon on a disc, actually, I'm going to take back what I said in my Thousand Suns Tactica. Him on a disc is actually pretty good. Giving them the fly keyword, I was able to position him in a lot of places that I normally don't do, especially in this list because I didn't have very many screens to hide him behind. And so I was able to hide him behind stuff himself and then just fly out and cast whatever I needed when I needed to. So it did come into play multiple times. I did lose him game 2 to Stupidity. Actually, game 1, didn't I lose him to Stupidity too? Yeah, I did. So game 1, I lost him to a Demon Prince because I charged him into a Demon Prince, hoping to consolidate into a Foul Blight spawn. And then Tim was smart and waxed my Arimon. Yeah. It was a sad day. So he waxed Arimon because he interrupted combat and killed him. Game 2, I fed him to a bunch of Harlequins. All those fusion blasters that hurt the knight, they killed Arimon too. Arimon definitely biffed it that game. And then game 3, he was actually real good. In the end there, I think he was going to smack around a few Plague Bears that I had Death Hexed finally, so which is real good. Arimon on disc he definitely has merit. Zangors, first time using them, I like them. They're a lot of fun. They didn't do nearly as much damage as I've heard them doing. Even with Veterans of the Long War and swinging twice, Plague Bears are still incredibly hard to put down. Both games against Plague Bears, they struggled. Now, I didn't cast Prescience on them. I didn't get all the buff spells on them. I think that's mostly because if you're doing Magnus and them, you don't have room to cast the buffs on both. So maybe they're a lot better if they are the unit that you're going to buff. Now, the other issue that I have with it, too, is you can't cast the spells if you've moved them. So, honestly, normally you're not going to have the buffs on them anyway. So, I don't know. They're good, though. They're real good. I do look forward. I bought this box mostly for Kill Team, but I do look forward to building up a small Thousand Suns contingent to add to games. And the rubrics were actually very surprising, very surprising, especially in a Thousand Suns detachment, because I was getting free 1 wound smites just because, which is real good, and you can give them spells too. So just so you know, you can. I think it's the Disciple of Change or something, Discipline of Change. So I know I talked about them in my tactic. I was like, yeah, I could actually see some merit with these guys. Actually, after playing with them, they're actually really good. They're not bad. AP -2 bolters are real good. I'm just going to put that out there. They're real good. Now, they are still a bit expensive, but they do get 2-up saves against damage 1 weapons. So I did charge them into Plague Bears because I get 2-up saves against Plague Bears. Why not? Why not, right? And you do. My guys had Force Swords because they're the older versions. But, I mean, I get Force Weapon swings. Why not? It's D3 damage, why not? Or with the Force Stave, strength 6. So, real good. Rubrics were actually, they impressed me a lot all games. And I think over the course of all 3 games, I did not lose a full squad. Because everything else was more pressing for them to kill, and they were actually able to do damage with those. I'll say the Infernal Bolters, they stripped wounds off Knights. They killed a bunch of Nurglings. They were able to secure some key kills. They also killed the Harlequins in my last game, or in my second game. That small squad of Harlequins that did 6 wounds to my Knights, they killed those. So, yeah, go Rubrics. And yeah, Rubrics were real good. Magnus, I was very impressed by him. Now, like I said, he is definitely a very swingy model. There is no doubt about it. That game against the Harlequins, I definitely saw that. Like, okay, there's enough fusion pistols here that he's gonna die, and he died. And mortal wounds is definitely his mortal enemy. Like, if you have something that can generate mortal wounds, which those Harlequins can, you can put him in the ground. He's not as sturdy as Mortarion, but he does do a crap load of damage, and his psychic spells give him a lot of utility. So I really liked him. For my first time playing him. I liked him a lot. Might look at picking him up for Christmas or something, or maybe somebody will donate one to the channel. No, I doubt anybody's going to donate a $150 model to the channel, but you never know. And then yeah, Ahriman, we talked about those. Talked about the Knight. You guys already know my thoughts. The War Dogs, they did their War Dog thing. They were very underwhelming in the list. They were probably the weakest point in the list, and that's because, so against the Harlequins, one just died. The other one couldn't kill a transport to save his life. I think he killed a transport finally by the end. Game 1 against Tim, they killed some plague bearers. They didn't really do. Oh no, they killed a bunch of Nurglings. I used them for Nurgling duty because the damage 3, but they didn't really do much by the end of that game. And then game 3, they did put a bunch of wounds on the Avenger Gatling Cannon Knight, which helped me to kill it. It didn't quite tear it, but I was able to put a bunch of wounds on it. And I definitely felt the need for Shriveling Pox that I normally run to make those viable. So maybe if I were to run this list again, I would actually probably think of Moiroxes or some Warglaves. Warglaves mostly because it gives you more forward pressure, right? And honestly, melted guns are good. And then the Warglaves also get the benefit of the -1 to their AP for their swingy swings. So and they get like 8 swings or something like that, which is not bad at all. So I would probably swap those out for Warglaves in the future if I were to play this list again. And yeah, that's my list. So I appreciate you guys for sitting through this. I know my little post-game my prologue went a little long, but just giving you guys my thoughts. Had a lot of fun. Thank you guys at Carolina Comics. Thank you, Greg, for that great tournament. And I highly recommend you guys go hang out there. There are some very competitive players in some of these smaller shops. Mike was definitely his army was gorgeous. He goes to a lot of GTs. He is aiming to be best Harlequin, so just so you guys know, if you see him at a tournament, he's aiming, and he does have a very good list. I'm sure he might be tweaking it a little bit, but very, very good list. And if I'm ever down here again, I'll see you guys there again. I will come down there, and maybe I'll bring my stuff, and I'll bring Tim along with me and my buddy Jon, who let me borrow his army, so maybe he'll play. I don't know. Who knows what he'll play. So, but thank you guys for watching again. If you guys enjoyed this video, please subscribe. If you guys really, really like this video and you guys want to help us out, subscribe to our Patreon. We got all sorts of benefits on there. Nothing like some of these other channels, but I am a one-person guy that works for the U.S. military, so I've got limited resources for what I can give out right now. Looking in the future, some T-shirts or something like that. So more giveaways and things like that on the channel. And yeah, and like us on Facebook too, because our Facebook page is always a good. And check us out on Discord. Check out our Discord page. We do talk all the time on there. People posting cool lists and all that fun stuff. If you guys want to talk about chaos. And I will see you guys next time here on Heretic Wargaming.